Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're at. This is Lyle Russell coming at you on a holiday that I don't celebrate. It's hard not to in Argentina because 99% of all African Americans celebrate 4th of July. I do partake in the eatings. If you're cooking and want to send me some ribs or invite me over, I will eat your ribs. But that's a whole nother story. I want to talk about three things very quickly. One is we really should do a better job celebrating Juneteenth next year. Okay? There are more people celebrating the 4th of July that look like me than on Juneteenth. The second thing I want to talk about very briefly and quickly is reparations. If we don't demand reparations, they're not going to give us reparations. The fact is that if Vice President Biden wins on November the 3rd, he will become president because we elected him. But yet he does not support reparations. We should be demanding reparations. Even if it takes us 20 more years to get it, we should start demanding today. And it should be part of who we are and what we are expecting to take place in our society. They owe us. They owe our ancestors. They owe our grandparents. And they owe our parents' grandparents. 250 years thereabout of slavery. You just can't whitewash that away like they have in the history books. That's free labor. That is the economic base of our society. That's how we became a world power, because of 250 years of free labor. Who chopped the trees down? Who planted the crops? Slaves did. Not poor white peasants from Europe. They were lazy by and large. They couldn't speak their own language. Most of them was illiterate. And people don't know this, but most European prisons were dumped during the first couple hundred years of Europeans coming to America. They dumped their prisons. So they sent prostitutes, they sent murderers, they sent thieves. These are the people and descendants of people who had no moral compass from the beginning. So it was very easy for them to look at our ancestors as subhuman because they lack a moral compass. But I digress. It should be part of the Democratic Convention platform, reparations for our people. When he becomes president, he should set up a commission. There's no need to have a 5-year study or a year study. There are enough empirical studies done already on discrimination, racism, and oppression in our society that it doesn't take a person with a PhD to find that information material and put it into a form that would justify reparations. The third thing I want to talk about is Hosea Williams, just briefly, told us a story one night doing a campaign to register African Americans back in the day. He talked about what happened to the civil rights movement. I'll give you the short version. He told us that weeks before Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, they went to the Carolinas to a retreat. And several times prior to that, King had talked about being assassinated, whatever the case may be, but he didn't think he was going to live much longer. But he told them to make a promise to him. And the promise was that they would not disband the group, the civil rights movement. Of course, he was assassinated weeks later in Memphis, trying to get the black sanitation workers a raise. They did eventually get a 10-cent raise, which is peanuts. In the process, we end up losing one of the greatest leaders in the history of our country. But what happened was the government called Andy Young and wanted him to become an ambassador. even though he lacked any international political experience, but they knew what they were doing. So he took the job, probably paid well, and it was prestigious, and he was an excellent ambassador to the UN. Jesse Jackson wanted to be the leader of SCLC, but he was from the North, and he didn't have a good rapport with other black pastors that were members. So Abernathy become the new leader. But he lacked the charisma. He was very articulate, but he just didn't have the same demeanor and stature as King had. So it wasn't very successful. In its own right it was, but in the big picture it wasn't. Then, of course, they contacted Mrs. King and told her, don't become part of that. Do your own thing, create a legacy for your son. And so she started a nonprofit, of course, the King Center. And so she didn't become part of it. So you see the trend here. White people manipulated our black leaders to break off. Jesse was getting funded by Jews and white people from the North to start his own organization. And that became the downfall of the movement. And there's nothing we can do to get that back, but we can't start a new movement. The time is right. It's always been right. We just lack the courage and leadership to do it. Last I want to talk about is economic empowerment, just briefly. I will be sending out some information within the next couple of weeks about economic empowerment. The plan is so simple that it's unbelievable. I'll just be honest with you. It's not the first, we're not the first person to do it, as I mentioned it. The Jews do it all the time. It's about building an economic system that we recycle our own money before it leaves our community as many times as we can. But we have to own businesses to do that. And they're not going to give us nothing. We can't get a loan. As the people say, we can get a student loan, be in debt for $100,000, but ask them to give you $20,000 to open up a business. They laugh you right out the bank. It's just not going to happen. So until we pull our resources and do it ourselves, it would never happen. But that'll be coming out in July for sure. I'm working on the final way to address it, to get it mass produced and into many hands as I can in August. Because there's something needs to be done. We need to be able to recycle $1.5 trillion of wealth back into our community. We can create a lot more millionaires than we have. And we have quite a few now, self-made millionaires, obviously. Some athletes, obviously, but a lot of the wealthy black men and women in our community have nothing to do with a football or baseball. They're self-made. And we need to find the funding to continue to create opportunities for the people who have great ideas, who have the leadership, who have the vision to start their own business, but lack the funding. We need to find funding for them. And the approach that I'm going to submit in August provides that opportunity for tens of thousands of people. We have to think in terms of Black Wall Street. We need 1,000 or 2,000 Black Wall Streets by 2050. If we can achieve that, we can recycle that $1.5 trillion 30 times in the black community very easily. I apologize, I'm outside and these gnats are killing me, attacking me like mosquitoes. But anyway, I digress. Feel free to forward this message and feel free to inbox me if you have any questions. Once again, this is La Restaurant. Peace and blessings.